Okay, we've already discussed the use of the Arizona Vortex and some of its applications. Right now we're going to demonstrate one of those applications, which would be the use of a very short gin pole or a focused floating anchor. And the purpose of this, it allows us to put an anchor, which is the small gin pole or the focused floating anchor we've created here, out here at a point where it's useful to us. Normally we like to have an anchor right here, but if our rescue's in this location and we don't have a suitable anchor, but we got one 100 feet back or 200 feet back or a couple anchors back behind us, we can artificially impose those to this point right here by use of this focused floating anchor. And that's what we're going to attempt to do today and demonstrate one of the uses of the Arizona Vortex. We start off by assembling the gin pole. We use the single gin pole head, one of the upper legs, one of the lower legs, and one of the raptor claw type feet. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to find a couple suitable anchors. Primarily, we would like to have two. 3 would be great, but at least 2 anchors behind 180 degrees from the surface that we're working. By keeping the angles at 60 degrees or as close to 60 degrees off to the back of this from each side, it covers that whole 180 degree plane where we never exceed that 90 degree angle that we're concerned with, which would overstress our anchors and possibly blow one of the anchors out. So that's what we've done here. We've extended the tan and blue line, and the reason we've used double lines, Kevin's got them right here, he's going to hold them up. And what we've done right here, the reason we use double lines is when we tension this system down with a single line, even though it's a static rope, there's a certain amount of stretch in it. And when we start loading the system, we don't want this focused floating anchor to move. The slack will be out, but if there's a lot of stretch in the system, when we put a rescue load of 2 or 3 rescuers, 600, 900 pounds on it, this system's going to flex forward, and that would be detrimental to what we're trying to accomplish. So we've doubled the rope on each of these, so we've got 4 half-inch ropes at about 9,000 pounds strength each going back. So we've got sufficient strength, and then we use a couple of mechanical advantages to the front. These aren't as critical, they don't hold the load, but what they do is they lock the system in place. These right here, we've picked a couple of anchors out in front of the gin pole or the focused floating anchor, and we're going to use a couple of mechanical advantage systems, 4-to-1 pulleys, little mini haul systems, to lock this system in. When we lock it in, we don't want the gin pole sitting in a straight up position. If it was a free float focused floating anchor where we didn't have the gin pole head and we were just using a rigging plate or something of this nature, it wouldn't really matter. But since we're using it, what we want to do, we want to take and use this device and the leg to our advantage. And what we do by slightly leaning it forward, the resultant force when we create a load here is creating compression on this leg right here and trying to force it in. What that does, it improves the rigging and it improves the holding power of the foot. The raptor claw foot, as we already discussed, has got a small piece of tool grade steel, and it really wants to dig in. And when we load the system, it forces that down even tighter and keeps it from kicking out. As we demonstrate, I believe it's going to be a little bit more clear. To start off with, all we've done is clipped a couple of locking carabiners in to our main anchors. You got that? Lean that forward. Okay, if Carney's going to start to tension his system down, and as he tensions it down, he's going to stop, and then I'm going to pull it back into place by tensioning this system. These two sort of oppose each other to the left and right, and the 2 anchors oppose each other to the left and right. The 2 mechanical advantage systems oppose the primary anchor system, and this allows us, as we stated earlier, to tighten this system in and really lock it and focus it down. It's not imperative that you do this. This has got a self-locking mechanical device, but in rescue, safety is going to be the utmost importance. So we're just going to take this and we're going to tie this system off. just as a little backup. Just like any other anchor system, a couple of round turns and half hitches or overhand knots, whatever your SOP is for you to lock a system off. I've elected to use a round turn and a couple of half hitches right here on the back leg, and that takes the camming device out of play. The camming device is not imperative. If the camming device were to fail, it doesn't really matter because we've got the system tied off with a knot.
Now, Vince, what you've got here is a 4-to-1 with using a tib as your locking device. If they didn't have all of this hardware, they could create this really just with ropes, inline 8s or some kind of tension device. You could use a Prusik cord to be your locking device if you needed, if you didn't have the equipment that we're using here today. Is that right?
That is correct. Any mechanical advantage system you have here, if you create your own mechanical advantage system using a couple of carabiners and some webbing, a round turn and 2 half hitches, and you tension the system, if you use full 3 or 4 inch pulleys and tandem triple wrap Prusiks, whatever you wanted to use, it really doesn't matter. The nice thing about these mini haul systems is they don't take up a lot of weight and they don't take up a lot of room in your pack. They're still sufficient strength. We're talking about 8 and 9 millimeter accessory cord on these systems, and people are using these more and more in rescue systems today. As you can see, the system is set up, and when we grab a hold of this, there's very little movement. I don't like it, so I'm going to take and come back, and I'm going to tighten it up just a little bit more to ensure that we don't end up with that movement, because remember, we want this thing to function like a tree that we've just artificially imposed out here onto the rock. Again, I'm going to come back and I'm going to tie the system off. Okay, as you can see, the system is well locked. I like the angles. We're still looking at a pretty good angle system here. This is about 60 to 90 degrees between each other. That means less than 60 to 90 degrees to 180 degrees of the plane. So we still got a real strong system. What this allows me to do now, instead of me being clipped off, if you notice, myself and Carney, we've been clipped off to an anchor back behind, always keeping safety in mind. We could change this if we wanted to at this point. We could elect to hook into this focus floating anchor ourselves. Of course, we want to hook into the new anchor prior to disconnecting from the line we already have. Now what we've accomplished is I've got myself anchored into the system. I have to put total confidence in the system anyway. That's what my rescue or my rescue package is going to be dependent upon. Okay? Carney can also be hooked into it. We've got 5 holes for rigging. If that's not enough, once we rig everything up, we've left the center hole open. If we need more than 1 rigging point, of course we can take a regular standard rigging plate, clip it in here, and give us however many holes we happen to have to rig off of on our primary rigging plate. And we can do all of our rigging from this. It keeps it up and out of the way from the rest of this stuff.
Now, Vince, this has given us a point that is higher for us. If we were going to do a standard rappel here, that our anchor point now would be above our waist as we're getting ready to go over. So we don't have that 1 to 2 foot drop sometimes you have with an anchor coming straight at the bottom of the rock. So I see the advantage there as we're rappelling. How about if we had to do basket work? If we had a basket on here, if we needed more height, this will easily adjust higher if we need to. You know, does it have purposes in that, or is it limited to its height?
No, that's a good point, Carney. The Arizona Vortex comes as the availability to use it as a tripod, which is the full configuration, an A-frame, or a gin pole. Right now we've basically created a short gin pole. Also could be considered a focus floating anchor because typically a gin pole is well above our heads. In this configuration right here, it has given us that high point or an artificial high directional. It makes it much easier to transition this edge right here. If our primary anchor, we're always going to anchor low. That cuts down on the fulcrum or the lever effect, and it makes our anchors as strong as possible. By anchoring low, the rope actually can travel up to this point from an anchor down there. If the anchor was right here coming across the rock and I was hooked to it, can you hold this right back there, Carney? and I was hooked to it and I was getting ready to rappel, we've all seen what it's like when you try and transition that edge, okay? For the experienced rescuer, it can be done, but it's a whole lot safer if you've got a high directional, if you're rappelling from below that anchor point. And right now, it's the same level as my waist, so there would be no significant drop. If I rappelled off with this rope right here, I would have a significant drop when I transition the edge, okay? Because all of a sudden, all of this is going to fall. Conversely, if my rescue rope is coming from here or my rescue package is going to rappel from right there, what it allows me to do is I step back. If this is my waist height, as I start walking down the face, this actually shortens up, so I'm still going to have to let rope out to keep my body in position to go down the edge. And that artificial high direction has made this ledge transition very easy. The other part of what you spoke of is the height. If we needed more height, if we were trying to utilize this system to raise a basket up, we can elevate this thing to a maximum height with the Vortex of 12 feet. In the instructions it says that it'll set up a 12-foot tall tripod, A-frame or gin pole. And the way we accomplish that is it has a modular system. It's got a section of legs called the lower legs, which are the large ones with the small ends, and then you've only got 3 upper legs, and we've got it totally collapsed into this lower leg. With 1 lower leg and 1 upper leg, we can extend this out and get almost 6 feet of height, okay? So if we needed it, we could put it up here. If we needed even more height, we can attach 2 or 3 lower legs, but never more than 3 of the lower legs together, okay? The bending moment and the forces, the manufacturer does not recommend utilizing the Arizona Vortex above 3 lower legs and 1 upper leg, or maximum of 12 feet.
Vince, what applications can we use this system for, our belay systems?
Okay, in our belay system, this is another application. This could be very handy and useful for us. What it allows us to do is we could actually rig our belay rope off this rigging plate or off of this focus floating anchor, and then we're working it from this edge. This allows better visual communication as well as better voice communication. If I'm back here, I can neither see the person, and my voice has a tendency to project out, as opposed to if I'm able to look in direct line of sight, the voice communication is improved tremendously, as well as the visual, both for me and the victim and the rescuer who's went over the ledge.
And it would seem at least you're pulling this way if you have a sudden deployment of your belay versus taking the belayer out toward the edge.
Exactly. With this working as a change of direction basically for the belayer, for me to stop the load, it seems a little crazy, but I'm actually going to want to go away from the anchor, which is putting me trying to fall off the rock as well. So if the system falls and it pulls back, it's actually going to want to pull me this way. I'm going to want to try and pull off the edge, which is not the natural tendency to do, but if you have confidence in your rigging and confidence in your system, you're not going to think twice about it. You're going to lean. I wouldn't be standing here if I didn't have confidence in my system as it is anyway.
It seems like the Vortex has a lot of applications, and I think probably the best piece of this is you can take small pieces of it, small parts of it, specific to what you need to do, and that keeps us from lugging so much equipment around if we know what our specific rescue is.
Exactly. That's one of the nice things about it. It's a modular system, and you can put it together. That's also one of the drawbacks, because you have to have significant amount of experience and training in the proper use of this system.